So at a church meeting recently, we were talking about how we were kind of feeling unsettled. Some of it was about call meeting process, some of it was about our own personal lives, some about the state of the world, just not really feeling at peace. And so our takeaway from that meeting was to pray for peace for ourselves and for Bethlehem, and to pray for unity too. And so when I led chapel out at Forest Hills last month, it was the second week in Advent, which is when we focus on peace for the week. And so I looked at Isaiah chapter 11, which is a poetic picture of peace. It's an amazing image. And so, since we didn't have a pastor for today, I thought I'd share some similar thoughts here. So this is ultimately more of a meditation on the text than it is preaching. And the Isaiah passage begins with a branch, as I said in the children's message, a branch will grow from the stump of a tree that was cut down. So a new king will come from the family of Jesse. Actually, yeah, there you go. It's already up there. Very good. Well done. The Spirit of the Lord will rest upon that king. The Spirit gives him wisdom, understanding, guidance, and power. And the Spirit teaches him to know and respect the Lord. This king will be glad to obey the Lord. He will not judge by the way things look. He will not judge by what people say. He will judge the poor honestly. He'll be fair in his decisions for the poor people of the land. At his command, evil people will be punished. By his words, the wicked will be put to death. Goodness and fairness will give him strength. They'll be like a belt around his waist. So a branch will grow from a stump. A stump that's dead gives life. So my family, we watched a movie called Train Dreams. It's about the life of a logger in the Northwest. Anybody else seen it? It's on Netflix. It's worth the watch, especially if you're a high school or older. I should put that caveat. It's a little slow. The quote that stuck out to me was, "In the forest, a living tree and a dead tree are both just as important." And we know this to be true because we live in the Northwest and we've walked around the forest. Because have you ever seen a tree coming out of a stump before? Yeah, I think it's called like the mother log or something like that. But this is a very common occurrence. And every tree in the forest is there because of another dead tree, right? And so all trees are planted, unless planted by God, are the result of dead trees. So they are very important for the life of the forest. And in fact, even a forest fire can be helpful for the life of the forest. But this is talking about Jesus coming from Jesse. And we know that Jesse had many sons. I don't know a whole lot about Jesse, but we do know that one of his sons was King David. And Samuel goes to him looking for the future king. And Jesse overlooks David and points to every other son he has, which he had quite a few of, before mentioning, oh yeah, there's David. He's out tending the sheep right now. He's my youngest, and he wouldn't even be worth looking at. But Samuel's refrain to him is, don't judge people by their outward appearance. Judge them by the heart. And Isaiah says this is also true of the new future king, Jesus. So too often, we also dismiss people based on appearance or labels we give them, rather than learning their story and why they are the way that they are. James tells us to be quick to listen, slow to speak, and slow to anger. This brings peace. Isaiah tells all of this about this future king while there are still kings at his time. And they're also from the line of Jesse. In fact, he specifically tells us his ministry happened under 4 kings: Uzziah, Jotham, Ahaz, and Hezekiah, all from the line of Jesse. We know this because their names are in the genealogy of Jesus recorded in Matthew chapter 1. So all the kings that Isaiah speaks against are grandsons of Jesse and grandfathers of Jesus. Yet Isaiah preaches against them, especially Ahaz. They aren't helping the poor, and they're letting evil thrive. He correctly prophesies their line will be forgotten and die off, just a stump of what they once were until a little child leads them. So Isaiah says the same to us. Help the poor. Don't let evil thrive in your kingdom, your home, and most importantly, your life. And I have a visual for us to look at as this passage continues. There you go. It says, then wolves will live in peace with lambs, and leopards will lie down to rest with goats. Calves, lions, and young bulls will eat together, and a little child shall lead them. So kids just came forward. You guys want to hang out with some wolves, lions, and bulls together? Yeah. Could you see yourself being a part of that? Yes? Okay. Do you want to be with the animals? Very good. Okay. Well, as long as they're not fighting you, right? Because there's like a lion in there. There's some scariness. There's a snake. There's a bear that does not look too pretty. The cow even doesn't really look that great. It seems a little scary, but I'm glad you want to. But generally speaking, a parent probably wouldn't allow their kid to do this, right? So, but it says that a little child shall lead them. So, same question. Who is that? Jesus, right? We know that one. So when does Jesus lead us as a little child? Well, I can think of 2 times. One is Epiphany. When the star arrives and leads the wise men to Jesus, he's found not in a stable but in a home. And the manger isn't even mentioned, so it's likely that Jesus was a toddler, so he probably was a little child that time. And when they do see him, they give him gifts and worship him. And he led them with the star, so that could make sense. That's also our response to Jesus coming as well. We give him our offerings, especially the less fortunate. We give Jesus our love, our worship, and our praise. But also, Jesus leads as a little child when he's at the temple with the Pharisees, teaching them the faith around the age 12. And that could be what it's referring to there too. Then Isaiah goes on. He says, cows and bears will eat together in peace. Their young will lie down together. Lions will eat hay as oxen do. A baby will be able to play near a cobra's hole. A child will be able to put his hand at the nest of a poisonous snake. Okay, same kids who wanted to be up here. Do you want to put your hand into a snake nest? We have a yes. Okay, I'm sorry. Your parents also won't allow you to do that. At least for me, have you guys seen a gardener snake nest out in your front yard? Okay, so yeah, have you put your hand in that? You have. Okay. I should not be asking for help in the crowd. That's my takeaway from this. But even so, that I can handle a garter snake, but like 30 of them in one little spot, no, that's not my jam anyway. But it says, good news for you in particular, they will not hurt or destroy each other on all my holy mountain. So that's perfect peace. And it says, the earth will be full of the knowledge of the Lord as the sea is full of water. Imagine how much knowledge there would be. So as much as there is water in the ocean is how much you know God. That's a beautiful promise. And at that time, the new king from the family of Jesse will stand as a banner for the people. The nations will come together around him, and the place where he lives will be filled with glory. So now, is this talking about earth now? Or perhaps on Epiphany, when the nations come together, the wise men are there? Or is it talking about the last day when Christ returns? Probably both. And the whole passage talks about the animals coming together. And so that could refer to the lion and the lamb lying down in heaven. That's normally what we think of. But it's also talking about the Garden of Eden, where the animals seem to have done this as well. And it, of course, leads to the theological question, are there animals really in heaven? And Elijah is taken up to heaven. When he does that, the chariot is being pulled by horses, right? And then Jesus rides a white horse in heaven in Revelation, so maybe that's what it's talking about. And perhaps it's talking about Christmas. What surrounds Jesus on Christmas? Animals, right? He's in a stable. He's got a feeding trough that's there for animals that he's laying in. And though we don't think there were lions there, it doesn't quite look like this image, we do picture sheep, camels, donkeys, and cows, and Jesus being there peacefully amongst them. Probably, though, this passage is more about all of creation, being at peace and harmony, and especially us having peace and harmony. And we see that at Christmas, too. We see Jewish shepherds who likely were so poor they brought no gift but joy and wonder to Jesus. And then we see the Gentile wise men on Epiphany bringing gold and gifts that were very rich, coming from far away to worship Jesus. And Christ unites Zechariah, a priest who could not speak, with angels who couldn't stop singing. And you have newly betrothed Mary and Joseph and a widow named Anna who greets him at the temple days after his birth. So people from all walks of life are coming together to worship. And this is what Jesus and his church are to do, to unite, make neighbors, and bring peace. But when you Google Isaiah chapter 11, you find much note of a man named Edward Hicks. He's an artist. He painted this image. He meditated on this passage for decades. He likely painted it over 100 times. This is one of many paintings he called The Peaceable Kingdom. It's all in a series. And he was a minister and a painter, and he lived from 1780 to 1849 in Pennsylvania. And do you have a guess as to what religion he was? If he's living in Pennsylvania in the 1800s, Quakers, correct, yeah. And you can kind of see it. You go forward one slide. I don't know who actually has. That was a bunch of slides. Go back a bunch. Okay. Yeah, go back one more. Okay, stay right there. All right, so you can see there's actually some Quakers standing in the back. They've got the little trifold hat, like Captain Jack maybe or something like that. But so there's Quakers there. That's William Penn, and he's talking to, there's a tree that happened before Edward Hicks was born, and you can see they're trading for land there. And so there's the Native Americans, and the treaty's bringing about peace, and this is kind of the way that Edward Hicks saw the world, was that the Quakers had come, they'd help things out there, there's peace with the Indians and such. And so then we'll go on from here. So that's Jesus, and he's kind of got his arm around, I think that's a lion, possibly a tiger, right? And then you've got an ox and a lion. What are the ox and the lion doing? They're eating something. What are they eating? Hay, yeah. So not that big of a deal that a cow is eating hay, right? But a little bit bizarre that the lion's eating hay. But that goes back to the Isaiah reference as well. Then you've got the goat down there, you've got the sheep, looking a little strange. Then we'll move on to the next one. So same idea, there's Quakers back there. I think it's a Christmas that's in the banner. Jesus is doing something a little bit different. There's a few less animals. Go on to the next one. So then Jesus has the lion in a chokehold. And it seems like, and a little child shall lead them, right? So how is Jesus leading the lion? There's two ways. Yeah. Oh, sorry. So he's trying to, make sure that bad things don't happen because, But how is Jesus leading the lion? There's two things he's doing. He's got grapes. So that's the carrot, leading him forward. I'm told that's supposed to be a communion reference, but he's leading, so that's the positive thing, leading him forward with the grapes. But what else is Jesus doing? I wouldn't call it a hug. I'd call that a chokehold, right? So I think he's actually got his hand all the way around his neck and like, hey, let's go this way, kind of a thing is what's going on there. Or at least let's nuzzle. Perhaps it's a hug. That's a much more positive way of looking at it. The way that I looked at it is probably this is law and gospel, that Jesus uses both. Like he's going to lead us where we don't want to go sometimes, but he's also going to give us something good when we get there. At least that's my takeaway. But you can look at art from very different perspectives, right? Go on to the next one. So this is a few less animals as well. He just had some different styles, and you can actually see written on there is Isaiah 11 on the outside. And then keep going. Same idea. A little bit, the lion seems a little bit more startled in this one, a couple there. You also can see there's kids down below. This is really hard to see, but that's the snake hold they're hanging out at. And then you can kind of see, I think that's a bear behind him. It's kind of a little creepy. So keep going to the next one. Same idea. The snake hole is a bit larger. There's a leopard there. You've still got the peace treaty going on behind there. And then go on the next. So now the bear's looking super scary as he moves on. And then one more. This one's a little bit different than the others. What's different? Sorry, what? The lion is wearing glasses in this one. I have not noticed that one. Thank you for that one. Yeah. Maybe it's a little bit more wise. Oh, it does. The eyes are different on the lion in this one. It looks bald, actually, is my takeaway from that. But it's the animals down below him that seems different to me.
It looks like the leopard's trying to prey on the little goat.
Yeah, it looks like the leopard's trying to prey on a little goat. The other one, the cat seems interested in the goat. And also, what's the bear doing? Hiding. I don't think the bear's hiding. Perhaps. It is a little bit behind the tree, but not doing a great job of its trying to hide. It looks a little scarier, right? So as Hicks, I think this is true, based off my reading of it and kind of looking at these paintings, as time progressed, he got a little bit more cynical. And he actually thought, because he had this grand idea about America, that the natives and the pilgrims and the Quakers would all be at peace. It would be the peaceable kingdom. And in his lifetime, as a Quaker, when he first came out, there was one Quaker denomination in America. By the time he's done, there are 5. And he's not allowed to preach in some of them. And also, they have told him he's a bit uppity for all these paintings, and nobody really wants them. And so what does he do? He gives them to his friends. And he can't even sell them. So there's 62 of them that still exist today. One of them is sold, of course, now for how much money? $1 million, of course, because that's how it works. So kind of an interesting, this is not just a Quaker issue. How many Lutheran denominations are there? Well, there's a lot, and I keep finding more. Apostolic Lutherans is the most interesting one of the bunch that I've done some research on, but we know the ELCA, the LCMS, there's WELS, there's ELS, NALC, LCMC. Any combination with the letter L in it, you can find a Lutheran that's there. But still, what he realized, hopefully, was that you really can't find peace just here on earth without somebody else's help, without a little child leading you. Real peace comes from Jesus. So we'll move on to the next one. This is a bit more modern. This guy's name was John Swanson, not Ron Swanson. I've gotten that confused before. And he's actually looking at Hick's work and also at Isaiah 11 and comes up with this. Could you draw something like that? No? Okay. I feel like maybe with enough time, we could come close. So this is a start. You still have all the animals there. They're not looking quite as violent, a little bit more hopeful, a little bit more peaceful. And then go on to the next one. Then he colorizes it. And again, that's a little bit different style. I don't think I could do that. Next one. So this is now like 20 years later. He's still meditating on the same passage. And it looks great. Like, how many of you at this point would be like, that's good, I'm done? I would. I think that's good. Next one. So this is a few years later. And then still, it's looking pretty good. I like you can now see light on Jesus in a different way than you could before. Then go on to the next one. This is the final one that I found anyway. He may have kept working on it. He died around 2004 or something like that. But you can see the light coming from Jesus there. It's really cool. And it's also nighttime, but then all the animals are there together as one. That seems like peace, right? Next one. So now you can see the difference between 30 years of working on your art and meditating on this passage. What do you see as, well, yeah. Now, would you ever want to buy the one on the left? No, right? Once you see the one on the right. The one on the left, though, why is it important? It's a starting point. It's a dead tree. If you don't have the dead tree, you don't have the live tree on the right, right? So it's a step in the process, and that's where we are as well. We're being molded by God, taking from one step to the next. And Jesus is making a masterpiece in us, and that's an amazing thing to think about. And so the question for us, though, is how do we bring peace? And maybe you bring peace through art. Maybe it's like that. Or maybe it's through a conversation with a friend. Because we've all done that. Just listening, or a hug, as was mentioned before, or sharing a meal and some grapes. That can do it too. I think about how Sarah and Margie provide peace for us each week by bringing us coffee and donuts, so we're able to sit down and have a conversation with one another. But it also could be other things too that bring about peace. Maybe it's about talking to somebody who's completely different from you and learning their life story. I've been blessed to get to know Robert, who's the man who puts his RV out here. I think he was here this morning when I came in. He's probably still there. He has a completely different idea about life than I've ever had. He's taught me about systemic homelessness. Not something I understand still, but it's helped me to look at life from a different perspective than I had before. But then, how does Jesus bring about peace? You can go on to the next slide there too. This kind of is more Christmassy. It kind of gives that whole peaceful Christmas vibe. I think of Jesus bringing peace to children. The disciples were keeping the kids away from Jesus. And Jesus says, "Come to me." And he blesses them. And that's peaceful. I also think of Jesus simply by being born, bringing peace to Mary and Joseph and the wise men. He is proof that the king has come, that there is peace on earth. And simply in his presence, the wise men worshiped. And this last year, I got to go to the NICU for the first time and see a baby that was born a month premature. Have any of you been to NICU before? Wow, that's a lot of you. And so for many of you, I'm sure it's a scary place to go. Nobody wants to really be in the NICU. But for me, in this instance, we knew that Josie was okay. It was actually Sarah who probably had more issues than Josie did. It was calming. It was 95, 97 degrees because that's what infants are used to. That's what they're at in their parents' womb. And it's quiet. Because the babies have not developed the ability to cry yet, which is crazy to think about. That's something you have to grow up long enough to learn. And there's just this moment of holiness, walking in, being amongst these babies who are fighting for their life, and just an amazing thing. And I gotta say that Josie brought me peace. But even that is nothing compared to the peace that Jesus gives. But I also think of an empty tomb on the sunrise of Easter Day. Death is defeated, and it's quiet, and it's beautiful, and Jesus and the whole world are at peace. So may Jesus bring you peace, and may you bring peace to others. And all his people said,